GMS Brazil is opening the sliding door of a luxury van to reveal the inside, which a lot of it is going to be wrapped. So a full series of videos on it. Specifically in this one, GMS will be wrapping the cover for the refrigerator, which is at the bottom there. It's got that deep handle, and it's actually a two-part series. Luckily, it removes, so GMS removes it to a work table, cleaned and degreased the handle area, and now applies an adhesive promoter. It needs to raise the surface energy because this is going to be a permanent install. Takes a scrap now, and obviously it has to make sure that the grain on the face will match the main area. So obviously just take a few seconds to think about that. Feeds in a piece that was pre-cut on the back, so he has basically a straight line that has just enough material to go past the edge, but not too much. There's a bit of a dogfight in there. So with the piece set on the inside, it's now time to cut away the excess material on the outside so it really relaxes, so we can remove it precisely. So I really want you to pay attention to the series of relief cuts that he makes. Very short, small ones at the top at that transition can make kind of bigger ones on the outside and the bottom area, but then once he gets back to that top little corner, makes really tiny ones, and this is just to really relieve the tension so it can fold over so we can make this really precise cut. So with the outside set, he now adds heat to the inside edge. And what that does is really relaxes the material and ensures that it's really conformed to that edge nice and tight. And once it's all set on that back edge, remember he cut just enough material to go past the edge, but not too much that it really kind of hit the back and was made it difficult to inlay the piece. So now basically he's doing an empty cut one. It's just basically cutting it flush to that back edge, but he definitely could cut it flush because there's no tension on that back inside piece at all, especially once he hit it with heat to fully relax it. And then here's a final tricky cut. So notice he changed his body position to really kind of access this point. And you see that long blade right now, and that's just flowing on that inside edge. So no cutting directly on the surface, just cutting alongside that back piece, and it cuts off nice and clean. So once that's done, it comes back and seals the deal. And here's what it looks like on the inside. So you can see lots of kind of scoops on the backside. Now it's time to click the blade and cut the excess material away from the outside. And this is a direct cut on the body. So you should really focus on cutting skills right now. So definitely want to practice. And this can be tricky cutting this type of film. It did stretch a little bit, so keep that in mind. It's a little thinner than it would be if it wasn't stretched. So this is probably went from 10 mil to around 8 mil. So super light touch. And notice that he's really focused on just going from section to section right now, not trying to cut it all in one shot. It's overlapping by about, I would say, 1/8 of an inch or about 2 to 3 millimeters. And you could, if you don't feel comfortable cutting straight here, you can definitely use masking tape to set it up here so you can kind of really use that as a guide. Otherwise, just use your really good strong cutting skills. Notice he's using his finger from his free hand to guide it around the curve right now. That really helps it keep the line. And then he just finishes that bottom section, immediately coming and pulling away the excess film. Good tip is don't let this material that's on the main area sit for a long time, because the adhesive from interior wrap film generally is very aggressive. This particular one comes from cover style, so if it sits for too long, it can be difficult to take off the main surface. So just really kind of get to this outside cut as quickly as possible. And then here's the final cut right now, and I really just wanted you to appreciate the entire sequence right now. And he's just double and triple checking to make sure that everything's cut away super clean before he removes the excess piece, otherwise he goes back to ground zero. So with the inlay done, it's time to prep the outside edge with a little bit of adhesive promoter, because the main piece is going to go on top of this. This has a low surface energy, so that's the right call. And now we're ready for part 2. Thanks for watching. Justin Pate. End of part 1 in this 2-part series of wrapping this cover of the refrigerator with interior wrap film. GMS is putting a little bit of adhesive promoter just on the outside edge of that inlay. Super smart. And now that the inlay is done, he's also going to apply adhesive promoter to the outside area. Always keep in mind when you apply adhesive promoter, you should always do it, let's say around 10 minutes just before you install. Like it's the maximum bond with the adhesive of the wrap film. If you let it sit too long, you can lose a little bit of that power. So just always make sure you kind of time it with the flow of the install. Notice that GMS is really focusing on those inside edges, because he's going to wrap the film all the way into that section. Obviously wait 10 minutes to start. Notice how he's using a little bit of yo-yo moment by taking the corner of the interior wrap film, holding on the refrigerator so he can release the liner safely. Now it's all about making sure the alignment is on point. So this obviously has a pattern. It goes vertical, make sure it's symmetrical, left to right, top to bottom. Keeps the liner on, double checks it, freehand pushes down while he lightly kind of creates a permanent hinge with his finger, then locks this upper section in with the squeegee. This material has an air egress feature on the adhesive, which is nice, but even then, look how quickly interior film tacks. This is really normal because the adhesive is really strong. So Jima snaps it up super quick with the liner on, and he does keep the liner on as long as possible, so just easy to manage sections. Once the main face is done, he transitions the material around this angle on the side, right to left. Not a super steep one, so don't really have to kind of form the material super tight on the corner. If it was a 90-degree drop off, totally different story. And on the body lines, notice that he makes relief cuts. This is to relax the film as it transitions towards the sides and also underneath, because he is going to wrap underneath the refrigerator as well. So with the main surface applied, it's cutting time, and Jima's is going to focus here on the inlay first. So notice he gives it a generous application of heat to soften it, then he forms it just to the edge of the inlay piece. Now if you watch part 1, and I definitely hope you did, keep in mind that Jima's wrapped the film on the inlay about 1/8 of an inch towards the outside face. Now he's taking the hard side of his squeegee and really tucking in that outside piece to the edge of the inlay. Very important to do that. And he's going to basically now, because that's set up super tight, he can now run his blade on the inside of the body line. He's actually not cutting directly on the surface. He's cutting alongside it. But by prepping it really firmly to the edge of the inlay piece, there's no chance of that piece that he's cutting now kind of lifting off. Keep in mind that the surface energy of this crocodile is super low. So once he makes that cut, and it's essentially a relief cut, so he has a perfect overlap on the inlay. Now what he's doing now is, because he made that inlay cut first, now he's going to relax the film towards the inside. So now he has full coverage at the top. So essentially it's a relief cut as well as making that overlap. So great combination there, and that's just thinking a little bit ahead, and that's what Jima's Brazil is all about. It cuts the inside piece right there, basically like an empty cut one, flush cut, super important to angle the blade slightly in, so that edge really is flush, so it just stays really nice and tight to the main surface. If you have the wrong angle, because this material is so thick, there's a chance that it might lift when someone's reaching in to get something out of the fridge. So very important with interior film, angle in cuts when you're cutting on the empty side. Hits it with heat to seal the deal, and now that inlay is perfectly finished with that main piece, and the overlap is super high quality. Now we get to, for me, a very cool overlap that Jima's is going to do at the top. Now keep in mind this is a very visual section of the refrigerator, so every time it opens, whoever's inside the van is going to be looking straight down at this. So oftentimes with interior films, there's a wide variety of different types of corners you can use, but you can see a huge amount of tension here. So what Jima's is going to use is he's going to take advantage of the fact that he heated the film, took it just past the edge, so he did stretch it a little bit. And with interior film, you always want to really make sure you keep that tension really low. So he clicks his blade, and now what he's going to do is just past where the tension builds on the body lines now, he's going to cut precisely on the inside about 1/8 of an inch. Now remember, on the bottom, which no one's going to see, he's going to do something totally different. Same body line, same material, but different approach because it's not visual. But this one's very visual, as I said before. So once he's made his cut, gently picks it up so it doesn't split. And very important with interior film, especially ones that are textured, is to add a little bit of adhesive promoter just to the edge. So he did that on the inlay piece in part 1 of the video, and now he's going to do it here during the install to speed up the drying process. Right now, just hits it with heat right before he does it so the primer is dried, and then he relaxes this material because it has a bit of tension and it's thick, around 10 mil. So he heats it, really relaxes right now, and this is going to allow it to gently just kind of pivot right there on where the cut was made, and then he just basically is going to relax it. Very important to kind of pull in the right direction. Pulls too far to the inside and it's going to get a wrinkle, so very important to kind of relax it down and just bam. She takes it to the outside corner and then squeegees it onto the main surface. So very important to kind of keep it away because he did warm it. So once it's set, always want to make sure that that transition where the relief cut was made is super flat, and if you do it right, it's great. Hits it with heat now just to make sure the material is conforming perfectly to itself and to the corner, and once everything is set there, it's cutting time. So clicking the blade so it's extra sharp and really making sure that edge is right in the shadow. So there's that transition between light and dark from the top area to the bottom, and he hits it perfectly. So nice, good, strong overlap for the long term, helped by the adhesive promoter, and looks absolutely flawless. So when whoever's looking down just thinks it's one piece, and it definitely would look like one piece to the untrained eye. So Zimas does the exact same thing on the other side. No need to do anything different. Definitely want both sides to look the same, symmetrical, especially someone who owns a very high luxury van like this will definitely be looking for, consistencies. They have a very fine eye for detail. So as an installer, you really have to make sure that everything looks the same. And if you do, that really is going to, pay dividends in the sense that a customer like this, if you do it well, will talk to his friends or her friends and you'll get a ton of work, which is super cool. So all about consistency and really kind of just relaxing the film, especially on that transition right there. We'll always want to get it down nice and clean. So you can see Zimas using the exact same techniques, double checking that transition right there where the relief cut was made super flat, and that can be very tricky to do, as I mentioned, with interior wrapping film, and cuts everything exactly the same. So good body position. Notice that it transitions very cleanly around that corner right there so you don't get a jagged cut, then pulls the excess film away. So super high quality, and then cuts right away at the very end. Done. So with the top finished, now let's focus on the backside area here. So he had a little bit of excess film on the side, trims that carefully away. Definitely wanted to have it at the beginning just to relax the film and handle it onto the main surface. Kisses it with heat, and this is a very tricky transition. This is a 90-degree drop-off. Earlier I talked about that 45-degree drop-off from the outside to the left and right sides, and that's not a big deal, but with interior wrap film, very important to relax it on those 90-degree turns. So once you feel like it's around that upper corner here, gives it a relief cut at that 45-degree angle, and then really allows it to kind of relax and be tucked in nice and tight on that 90-degree transition. Very important to do that. So once everything's set, this is essentially an empty cut one, but for interior film, like I said earlier, you always want to make sure you angle your blade in. Very, very, very important. Don't have a 90-degree angle there. Angle it flush in. That might sometimes leave a little bit of the white showing, but on this back side here, not a big deal at all. You'd rather have a little bit of white showing on this back section, just have a hold for the long term, because there's a chance that opening the refrigerator, they might grab here, even if they might grab the handle, so sometimes people grab the side. So very important to always think of grab points. So you see that little flush of white, but visually it's not a big deal. Plus it's symmetrical, so I'd rather show a little bit of white and have extra good hold than try to wrap it a little too far. And now the final stage right now of wrapping this refrigerator cover is just adding this piece on the back side. So this is a perfectly cut piece that fits to size. So Zimas just feeds it in nice and clean. Make sure it's really perfect left to right, top to bottom. Definitely don't want to come back in here and cut. So make sure you do your measurements super smart before. But you can see with the squeegee finger has that perfect fit. So I hope you enjoyed this two-part series. Thank you, Zimas, and thank you for watching.